Picture yourself at 80, sitting by a window. You're not thinking about the money you made or the hours you worked. You're thinking about the trip you never took and the person you were too comfortable to become. That regret is the most expensive thing a human being can buy, and most of us are paying for it on installment, one lazy day at a time. Here's the math at the center of this book. If you're lucky, you get around 4,000 weeks. And if you're 30 right now, roughly 1,500 of them are already spent. This is The Art of Laziness by Library Mindset, and its argument is simple and a little brutal. The life you want is sitting on the other side of your laziness. So stay with me to the end, because there's a story about a father, a son, and a donkey that quietly rewires how you'll make every choice after today. So, whose fault is it? The book's first answer is the one nobody wants to hear. It's yours. Not to shame you, but to hand you the controls. Because if your laziness is somebody else's fault, you're powerless. If it's yours, you're finally in charge. Library Mindset tells the story of a sparrow who built her nest in a farmer's wheat field. One evening, her chicks are trembling. The farmer told his sons to cut the wheat tomorrow. They cry. "Don't be afraid," the mother says. "No one will come," and no one does. Days later, the chicks panic again. He's asked the hired workers to cut it. Still, she's calm. Still, nothing happens. Then one night, she says something new. "Tomorrow, we leave." Why now? Because today the farmer said he was done waiting on his sons and done waiting on the workers. Tomorrow, he would cut the wheat himself. The instant he stopped depending on anyone else, the work got done. Nobody is coming to save you. And that is the best news you'll hear all day, because it means the one person who can is already here. So why do you keep choosing the couch? You keep choosing the couch because it's comfortable, and comfort is a trap that feels like a reward. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, the book says, but nothing ever grows there. Think about your own body's honesty. It's easy to watch movies, scroll the feed, and read the news all day. But notice how you feel afterward, that low, heavy guilt. That's your body telling you the truth your excuses won't. You just traded time you can never get back for nothing. Growth lives on the other side of that discomfort, and nobody who finally leaves the comfort zone ever says they wish they'd stayed. But leaving it doesn't mean overcomplicating it. Whenever you start something new, the author says, keep it stupidly simple and move fast. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Jeff Bezos put it this way: most good decisions can be made with about 70% of the information you wish you had. Wait for 90, and you're just being slow. Your first plan will fail anyway. So start now and fix it as you go, because speed is the one resource you can't buy back. But here's the sly disguise laziness loves most: perfectionism. It doesn't look like laziness. It looks like high standards. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. The author isn't against perfection. Leonardo da Vinci spent more than 10 years on the Mona Lisa. Steve Jobs, building the first Macintosh, insisted the circuit board wires be laid out straight and beautiful, even though they'd be sealed inside where no customer would ever look. Sometimes obsession over tiny details is exactly what greatness demands. The trap is when you can't switch it off. Lazy people, the book says, finally decide to start a project, then drown in every detail that could go wrong, and so they never actually begin. Perfectionism becomes a respectable excuse for doing nothing. So learn to turn the switch on and off. If you're cutting grass that regrows in 2 weeks, don't polish each blade. Done is better than perfect. As Shane Parrish puts it, if a decision is reversible, make it fast. If it's irreversible, make it late. Most of your decisions are reversible. So stop rehearsing and move. And underneath the perfectionism sits a quieter danger, one that never announces itself: mediocrity. Nobody chooses it out loud. As Todd Henry says, mediocrity doesn't just happen. It's chosen over time through small choices, day by day. That's the whole horror of it. There's no dramatic moment where you give up on your dreams. You just settle a little on a Tuesday. Then again, 99% of people, the book claims, settle for a job they quietly hate and then wonder why they wake up with no energy and no spark. And the cruelest part is the crowd. When everyone around you is mediocre and you try to reach higher, they'll say all sorts of things to pull you back down because your ambition makes them feel their own wasted potential. Steve Jobs said the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And if you haven't found it, keep looking. Don't settle. So think bigger than the people around you are comfortable with. Even if you fail, that beats the regret of never testing your own ceiling, because that ceiling won't be there forever. So what actually closes the gap between the person you are and the person you meant to be? One word: discipline. Jim Rohn framed it as a choice between two pains. We all suffer one or the other, he said, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. Discipline just means doing the thing that's good for your future but hard in the present. Going to the gym is hard. The couch is easy. Starting the business is hard. Procrastinating is easy. And the enemy of discipline is that seductive little phrase, "I'm waiting for the right time." The time will never be right. There will always be an obstacle. The book tells of a king handed a sealed message by his wise men to be opened only when all hope was gone. One day he's cornered at a cliff's edge, enemies closing in, no way out. He opens it. 4 words: "This too shall pass." He steadies. The enemy somehow moves on. He wins back his kingdom, and at the victory parade, drunk on triumph, he opens it again. This too shall pass. The bad days end, and so do the good ones, which is exactly why you can't afford to waste the ones you have. Now, if focus is the engine of discipline, here's the thing quietly stealing yours. You think you're good at it. You're not. Nobody is. It's multitasking. On December 11th, 1998, NASA launched the Mars Climate Orbiter, a $125 million spacecraft, to study the Martian climate. 10 months later, it reached Mars and vanished. The cause was almost laughably small. One team worked in English units, another in metric. Nobody converted between them, and the craft flew too close and was torn apart. One tiny lapse in attention, $125 million gone. That's multitasking in miniature. As Confucius warned, the man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Every time you switch tasks, you don't split your focus, you shred it. You get tired faster, your stress climbs, and the small mistakes creep in, the kind that quietly cost you everything. So the fix is unglamorous and total. One task, full attention, finished, then the next. Kill the notifications, clear the desk. Because the details you miss while feeling busy are the details that sink the ship. So you've cleared your focus for one task. Which task? The hard one. The cold water, the book says, doesn't get warmer if you jump in late. Here's the simple, punishing rule. Whatever the hardest, most uncomfortable thing on your list is, do it first. Not third, not after coffee, not once you feel ready. First. Because we're wired to dodge discomfort, so we bury the important and hard thing under a pile of easy busy work and call it a productive morning. But if a task can be endlessly avoided, it probably wasn't important. The one you keep flinching from usually is. And this scales up into a law for your whole life. The book lays out 2 doors: easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life. Skipping the gym is easy today and pays you back with a body that fails you later. The workout is hard today and buys you an easier tomorrow. You are always, quietly, choosing one of those 2 lives. So do the hard thing while it's small, before it grows teeth. But doing the hard thing first is impossible if you're ambushed every 10 minutes, and your worst distractions don't storm the gate. They're invited in. For 10 years, the Greeks laid siege to Troy and couldn't break its walls. So they built a giant wooden horse, hid their best warriors inside, and sailed away as if beaten. The Trojans dragged the trophy through their own gates and celebrated. That night, the soldiers slipped out and opened the city from within. Troy fell not to an army, but to a gift it welcomed. Your phone is the wooden horse. You pull it inside and call it harmless, and it quietly opens the gates to your attention. Even a 2-minute glance, the book notes, costs you closer to 10 because refocusing takes time. So delete the apps that eat you. Open your phone right now and remove the games and feeds you lose hours to. You can always reinstall them. Then build a spine for your day. Tolstoy kept a daily journal from the age of 18, woke at 5, walked, wrote, guarded his hours. A routine stops you deciding whether to do the hard thing, so you just do it. And each night, as Pascal hints, sit alone for 10 quiet minutes, because almost all of our problems come from an inability to do exactly that. Here's the strange part though. You can guard your focus, delete every app, and still lose your life by giving it away one polite yes at a time. We say yes when we mean no, the book says, just to avoid making someone else uncomfortable. And every one of those yeses is a withdrawal from a bank account you can't refill, your time and your energy. Say yes to every invitation, every favor, every meeting, and you slowly disappear under other people's priorities. To please everyone, you lose yourself. Learn to say no, kindly, but say it. As Seneca warned, if you don't know which port you're sailing to, no wind is favorable. If you have no goal of your own, you'll be blown around by everyone else's, and trying to be everywhere is the surest way to be nowhere. This is the hinge the whole book turns on. The life you want is on the other side of your laziness. Yes, but it's also on the other side of your yeses. Protect your no, and you protect the future you keep saying you want. And this flips a belief most of us never question, that being busy is the same as being productive. It isn't. Often, it's the opposite. The goal of productivity, the book insists, isn't to work more hours. It's to finish the work in less time so you can live the rest of your life. 20 years from now, Sahil Bloom writes, the only people who'll remember you worked late are your kids. Grinding 12 hours a day and neglecting everything else isn't dedication. It's a slow kind of self-harm dressed up as ambition. And a lot of that grinding is procrastination in a disguise, the busy disguise. The important tasks are hard, so we bury ourselves in easy, unimportant ones to feel productive without risking anything. But as Stephen Covey warned, if your ladder is leaning against the wrong wall, every step just gets you to the wrong place faster. So before you climb, check the wall. Be productive, not busy, because there is no prize at the top of the wrong ladder. Which brings us to the excuse that outlives all the others. I'll start when the time is right. The author is blunt. He has never met a single successful person who simply waited for the perfect moment. It never arrives. But don't confuse this with impatience for results. A farmer plants a bamboo seed and waters it. Year 1, nothing. Year 2, nothing. Years 3 and 4, still bare soil, and his faith nearly breaks. Then in the 5th year it sprouts, and in 6 weeks it shoots up 60 feet. It wasn't dead. It was building roots. There's the whole secret. Be impatient with your actions and patient with your results. Do the work today, every day, and let the harvest take its time. A Zen student once asked his master how long to reach mastery. 10 years, said the master. And if I work twice as hard? 20 years. Because straining for the reward only pulls you further from the work. So show up daily and protect the streak with the 2-day rule. Miss once if life forces you to, but never twice in a row, because 2 skips is how not doing quietly becomes who you are. Still, willpower has a limit, and here's the force that quietly overrides it: the people around you. You are, as Jim Rohn said, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. The book doesn't dress this up. If your friends are lazy, you'll be lazy. If they procrastinate, so will you. If they read, you'll start reading. You absorb the habits of whoever you're closest to, good or bad, usually without noticing. The single biggest reason people stay lazy, the author argues, is that everyone around them is lazy too, and it feels normal. So audit your circle honestly. Alex Hormozy has a filter for whose advice to take. If they don't have what you want, don't listen to what they say. Don't take happiness advice from a bitter person or health advice from someone who's given up on their own. And you don't need to be cruel about it. Close the window that hurts you. Someone in the book says, no matter how beautiful the view, change your circle and you quietly change your ceiling. But there's an inner saboteur too, one that keeps a lazy mind especially busy: worry. Worry loves a lazy person, the book says, because a lazy person has nothing to do all day but worry. Mark Twain caught it perfectly. I am an old man, he said, and I have known many troubles, most of which never happened. So the author hands you one clean rule. Split every worry into 2 piles. The things you can control and the things you can't. If it's the asteroid you can do nothing about, worrying is pure self-torture, so let it go. And if it's your health, your work, something you can actually act on, then the worry has only one honest use: to move you to act. Because worry has exactly one antidote, and it isn't more thinking, it's action. Worried about your health? Thinking about it all day won't add a single healthy cell. Standing up and doing one thing will. Anxious about money? About a deadline? About a hard conversation? The thought spins forever. The first small action ends it. So stop rehearsing the fear and take the step. Now here's a truth that reframes this entire book. Maybe you're not lazy at all. Maybe you're just doing the wrong work. Because you can never be motivated to do something meaningless, and no productivity hack on earth can fix a life pointed at the wrong target. Your work will fill most of your waking life, so if you don't choose it, someone else will choose it for you, and it will feel like a weight you carry every morning. Choose work you love, the author says, and laziness barely exists. You'll forget the word. But loving your work is not the same as it always feeling good. When Vincent van Gogh committed himself fully to painting at 27, he worked with ferocious intensity, painting at lightning speed, and still the money never came, because he was so far ahead of his time that almost nothing sold in his lifetime, kept afloat mostly by his brother Theo. His story ended young and in deep sorrow, long before the world understood what he'd made. Passion doesn't promise ease or reward, so don't run from the hard parts of the work you love, and don't chase success either, the book says. Make yourself better and let it come to you. And once you're doing the right work, one truth sets you free. You cannot do everything yourself. There will never be enough hours, no matter how clever your system. That's not a failure, it's an invitation. Here's the test. If a task can be handed off, it was probably a low-value task to begin with. So make a list of the things that eat your day but don't move your life, and let someone else do them, even cheaply, even at 90% as well as you would. Your ego insists no one can do it like you can. Your ego, the author says, is usually wrong. As John Maxwell put it, if you want to do a few small things right, do them yourself. If you want to do great things, learn to delegate. Then take the hours you free up and pour them into learning. Charlie Munger noticed that the people who rise aren't always the smartest or the hardest working. They're the relentless learning machines. So learn what's actually useful. Start today, not someday, and read widely. Fiction, history, philosophy, biography, everything. Because a mind that keeps growing never quite runs out of road. So far, this has all been mindset, the inner rewiring. But the book saves a toolkit for the end, small, sharp techniques you can use tomorrow morning. Here are the ones that pull the most weight. Start with the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. Roughly 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results. So the daily question becomes ruthless. Which one task, if I finished it, would make the rest almost irrelevant? Do that first. Then use Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time you give it. Give a task all day and it swallows the day. Give it 1 hour and you'll somehow finish in an hour. So set tight deadlines and let the pressure do the work. For starting, 2 rules dissolve resistance. The 5-minute rule. If something takes under 5 minutes, don't file it for later. Do it now, before the small undone things pile into a mountain that crushes your motivation. And the Pomodoro technique? Work in focused blocks, 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, and repeat. Finally, the 3-arrow rule. Each morning, cut your list down to just 3 high-value tasks, not 30. 3. Because a day aimed at 3 things that matter beats a day scattered across 30 that don't. Then the book turns east to 8 Japanese ideas for beating laziness. I won't recite all 8 like a list. That would be the opposite of everything we've said, but 2 of them could carry the whole book. The first is Ikigai, your reason to get out of bed. It sits where 4 circles overlap: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Find that center, and motivation stops being something you force. It's already there when you wake. This is the deep answer to the wrong work problem. Laziness is often just a life lived outside your Ikigai. The second is Kaizen. Don't wait for the giant leap. Get 1% better every day. Break the overwhelming goal into the smallest next step and take it. The other 6 sharpen the edges. Shoshin, the beginner's mind that stays open. Harahachibu, stop eating at 80% full so heaviness doesn't drag you down. Shinrin-yoku, walk in nature to melt stress. Wabi-sabi, find beauty in the imperfect instead of freezing over it. Genbaru and Gaman, endure and persevere when the road turns hard. Different words, one message. Purpose plus tiny, patient steps. But no technique survives without one nightly habit, and it costs you 10 minutes, because you can't improve what you never look at. Every night before sleep, the author says, take a pen and paper and walk back through your day hour by hour. What did you actually do? Where did the time leak away on things that made your life not one bit better? It stings a little to see it in ink, and that sting is the point. It makes the waste impossible to ignore. Then write a short to-do list for tomorrow, just the important things, so you wake up with a target instead of a fog. And keep the small foundations honest, because laziness often isn't a character flaw, it's a tired body. Move every day, even just a walk, because a body built to move rots when it only sits. Mind what you eat and drink enough water, since heaviness and fog usually start there. Guard a real sense of purpose, and carry a quiet sense of urgency, not panic, just the steady awareness that the clock is running. Track the day, tend the body, and productivity stops being a battle you fight and becomes the natural shape of your life. Which leaves one last enemy, the one whose opinions you fear most, everyone else. So here, as promised, is the story of the father, the son, and the donkey. A father and son walk home beside a donkey they've just bought. A passerby scoffs, "Look at the fools, a donkey and they're walking." So the boy climbs on. A second stranger, "Look at that lazy child riding while his old father walks." So they switch. A third, shameless man, riding while the poor boy struggles. So they both climb on. A fourth, how cruel, that little donkey can barely stand. And so, desperate to please everyone, they end up carrying the donkey, tied to a pole, while the whole village laughs. An elder finally tells them the truth. This is what happens when you live by everyone's opinion instead of your own good sense. That's the trap that keeps a life small. You water down your dreams to match people who are drowning in regret and want company. So don't. This book ends where your life will one day end, and the only question that remains is whether you spent it or wasted it. Do the hard thing now. Take the trip. Read the books. Keep the company you actually love, because the life you want has been on the other side of your laziness the whole time. The clock is running. Go start living.